evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. I am Bryson Carver, as always. It is great to be with you on a Friday, and this is just one of those shows, man. Occasionally we'll get the one on Friday where it's so good I'm actually pushing topics back. Initially, I was going to do like a post-mortem on the Tennessee Volunteer season, do one last edition of the Vol View, at least until about a month from now when Tennessee plays their bowl game, which will unfortunately probably be the Citrus Bowl. But we're going to actually push that for the future because there's a lot going on. We got some NFL stuff, Lions, Cowboys last night, NBA stuff, Giannis and the Bucks. Looks like they might be working on a trade sooner rather than later. LeBron James, one of the greatest streaks of all time, comes to an end last night, and it does in the most glorious fashion for LeBron. The double-digit scoring streak is over, and it probably, if you ask LeBron, it ended about the way that he wanted it to end. Talk about that. College football championship weekend predictions, and of course, week 14 NFL predictions, which features my upset of the week. I will admit a little, I'm not so sure how I feel about this upset, but I'm going out on a limb. Bryson's Bleak Bet, and of course, my favorite segment of all time, if I were a bet man trying to put together a 3-0 week. But let's get started with last night's game. But first, the Detroit Lions, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to lie. I picked Dallas to win. I thought the Lions were going to be on the ropes. I said last night was an elimination game. It was a de facto playoff game. And ultimately, it was the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell. What did y'all do last night? Do we have the soundbite? Here we go. What do we do?
Kneecap.
Oh, they bit the kneecaps off last night in Detroit. The Lions getting a win 44-30 over the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about Dallas, and we will talk about George Pickens in just a few minutes. But just watching Detroit last night, because the first couple of drives, they put together a nice one in which they get a field goal. They end up punting the second drive. And after that, for Detroit, it was nothing short of pure domination in every sense of the word with Dan Campbell calling plays. Look at the rest of the game. The Lions go touchdown, punt, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, missed field goal, touchdown, and then they took knees. Just absolute pure domination. And I think last night they played about exactly the way Dan Campbell wants them to play. Listen, they didn't run the football that well consistently all night long. They weren't able to get, it wasn't a death by 1,000 cuts type of game for Detroit, where it was Jahmyr Gibbs for 3, David Montgomery for 2, Jahmyr Gibbs for 7, David Montgomery for, it wasn't that type of thing. It was Gibbs broke off a couple of big plays, and we'll throw out a Jahmyr Gibbs stat that is hard to believe in just a second. And then David Montgomery broke a long run himself. It was more so let's just, again, Kirk Herbstreit was talking about during the game on Amazon last night, right? Like, let's just lean on the Dallas defensive line, kind of wear them down a little bit, then we'll break out a big one. Kind of like almost like a team version of what Saquon Barkley has been at his best, which is Saquon's not really a death by 1,000 cuts back. He could just hit a home run any given carry. And that's what Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are capable of. But Jared Goff was comfortable. Jared Goff had time to throw far more than Dak, and that to me was the difference of the game. Goff had a passer rating of about 111. Lions O-line protected him extremely well. And the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown played, tip of the cap to him. And this is a guy who hurt his ankle on Thanksgiving. The way the reporting was sounding in the ensuing days following that loss to Green Bay, it's like, I'm not sure he's going to give it a go against Dallas. It's going to be, and Laporta's out, so it's going to be Jamison Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's about all Detroit was going to have. But nope, St. Brown came in, got a target on the first play, made the biggest catch for Detroit in getting them into scoring territory, and pretty much wrapped the game up from there late in the fourth quarter. So he was excellent. And the Lions defense, listen, it's not great. To be fair, they were facing one of the best offenses in football in the Dallas Cowboys, giving up 30 points. Could have easily given up 37 if not, for Dak, getting unlucky on the Ryan Flournoy drop on the interception. But now Brian Branch is gone for the season with an Achilles, which sucks. Nothing but well wishes and prayers for him. Hopefully he recovers and comes back next year stronger than ever. But the back end of Detroit's secondary is beat up. It's really just Aiden Hutchinson, Derek Barnes, and Zaloni, and that's about it. It is becoming a carbon copy of last year for the Detroit Lions, where they're just losing bodies over and over. We hear the phrase next man up. Eventually, you run out of guys to bring up. That's what the Lions ran into a year ago, and that's what you see this season. I think the Lions next year's draft, listen, they're stacked offensively. Not only should they go all defense from first round to seventh round in next year's draft in about 5 months, but also just for the simple fact of we just need depth. We just need guys who can come in if there are injuries, and we're not petrified at what they're going to do on the field. Because there were times that some of those Lions DBs got absolutely burnt by a Ryan Flournoy, certainly by CeeDee Lamb before he got concussed, not by George Pickens. Well, again, we'll talk about him in just a few minutes. But that was the typical classic Detroit Lions win. We're going to win a track meet. We're going to score a lot of points. We're going to run the football. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be an out-of-this-world great back. Jared Goff, as long as he's comfortable, as long as he has time to throw, he is the best point guard quarterback maybe in the NFL, where it's just distribute, almost like the John Stockton type, where it's, John Stockton's not going to throw passes like Magic Johnson or like a Chris Paul, but he's just efficient. He gets it to the guys he's supposed to, and that's what Jared Goff does with the Lions. And as for Jahmyr Gibbs, this was a guy, and my guy Ryan Flowers can attest to. Shout out to Ryan, the host of NFL, NFL matchups. Great guy. I think he and I were the only two that were on this train in the 2023 draft, which was, hey guys, this running back out of Alabama, he's quick, he's twitchy, he can run in between the tackles. He's really good, Jahmyr Gibbs. And some are like, yeah, he might be a late first round, early second round pick. Lions take him 9th, and people lose their minds. Like, what are you doing? And I'm thinking, they probably just got a better version of Alvin Kamara. And that's exactly what they got. Here's a stat on Jahmyr Gibbs, if we have it here. Do we have the stat on Jahmyr Gibbs? Here it is. Most touchdowns. This is mind-blowing. Before turning age 24. Go and put up that graphic because it is absolutely insane. Jahmyr Gibbs, most touchdowns in history before turning 24. He is tied with another great Lions running back, in my opinion, the greatest running back of all time, Barry Sanders. And then you see Randy Moss, another great player, one of the greatest receivers ever, at 44 touchdowns before the age of 24. Jahmyr Gibbs has 47. He was the difference in that game. And again, the fact that it was controversial that Detroit took him 9th overall in 2023. I watched him in college at Bama. I loved him. Again, in between the tackles, quick, twitchy, can catch out of the backfield, and you saw all of it last night. He had 77, receiving yards. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. It was the perfect Jahmyr Gibbs performance. And as for Detroit, they're now just a game back of that 7 seed. It feels like the NFC North, they're kind of going to beat up on each other. Green Bay and Chicago play this weekend. Obviously, Minnesota's out of the race. I still don't know if I trust San Francisco long-term because their schedule's tougher than people, give it credit for. But that was an impressive win by Detroit. That was a classic Detroit Lions, bite the kneecaps, the whole bit. That's what that was. And so kudos to the Lions. Now, as for the Dallas Cowboys, listen, there's a lot of different angles we could go. The first of which I would say is, for all of those, it reminds me a little bit, I'll be honest, of another great Dallas athlete that got traded literally this year, Luka Doncic. Now, that one was far worse than the Micah Parsons trade, but where Luka gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, the Mavs get Anthony Davis, and it's Kyrie Irving. Oh, okay, we can have something here. There were smart basketball people that said, hey, maybe Dallas did win the trade, to which I thought was insane, but there were folks that said that. And there were smart football people that said, hey, Dallas, maybe it was a draw. Micah's been great with the Green Bay Packers, Micah Parsons, but the Cowboys, they turned one of those picks into Quinnen Williams. They've got some future picks for next year. We'll see how those draft picks hit, although Jerry has not been a great drafter in recent years, as we've talked about on the show. But it could be feels like he could have used a Micah Parsons yesterday, right? And it feels like, funny, I think Micah Parsons literally played the Detroit Lions at Ford Field on a Thursday, literally last weekend. Can we show Micah Parsons by himself against the Lions compared to what the Dallas Cowboys as a team did? Micah, 2.5 sacks. Dallas as a team, 1. Micah, 3 tackles for losses. Dallas as a team, just 1 more than that. Micah, 10 pressures by himself. Dallas Cowboys, 9 pressures on Jared Goff. And if you don't get pressure on Jared Goff, he's a different quarterback. And you saw with what Micah Parsons did to him last week. So I could take it from that perspective. I could say Jerry Jones bungled a trade, and last night showed that. I could take it from the perspective of, here we go. Dak's got no time to throw. The Cowboys, as I've said all season long, have one of the worst pass-blocking offensive lines in all of football. Dak was running for his life. I think he was pressured like 20 times or something. He was under duress all night. The 2 interceptions Dak threw, neither of which were his fault. I could take all of those, angles. But I think y'all know the one I'm wanting to go here. George Pickens. And you guys can see, those that are watching, via YouTube and Twitch and all of other platforms, I'm wearing my Pittsburgh Steelers hoodie. And because George Pickens used to play for Pittsburgh for 3 years, from 2022 to 24. And uber talented, gifted. Catch radius, speed, route running ability, run after the catch. He's got the whole package. But as Gary Dulac, who covers the Pittsburgh Steelers, is one of the best in the business, we weren't able to pull the soundbite, but as he so eloquently stated on the Rich Eisen show about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when Rich Eisen, respect to Rich, but he was asking Gary Dulac, hey, George Pickens by himself this season, has more receiving yards than the Pittsburgh Steelers receivers do. How are the Steelers feeling today about that trade? Or how are they shocked by that? And Gary Dulac said, no, they're probably not shocked at all because they know Dak is obviously better than any quarterback that he had in Pittsburgh. And they didn't trade him because he wasn't good. They didn't trade him because he wasn't productive. They knew that. He had a 1,000-yard season in Pittsburgh. He's capable of breaking 180 yards to the house. And he's also capable of games like last night, where this is the Cowboys' biggest game of the year. We said on Wednesday's show it was a playoff game for both teams. Whoever lost, I thought they were out of the race to get to the playoffs. So this was a playoff game last night for the Dallas Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb, who's having an awesome game against Detroit, bangs his head against the turf. He's out with a concussion. So now Dak looks to number 3 and says, hey, Pickens, you're my guy now. You're the number 1. That we've had moments earlier this year where CeeDee went down with injuries. You stepped up against Green Bay, against Carolina. What are you going to do this week? Disappear. Pout. Be in his head, in his feelings. I wrote down the list just so I make sure I didn't miss anything. But first play of the second half. Now, CeeDee Lamb is out here for this play. First play of the second half. Dallas is down 2 scores, so down 11 points. But if they can score a touchdown here, they can catch 3. Okay, we got a ball game here. Dak throws George Pickens a slant. Half fights for the ball. Ball gets popped up, intercepted by Derek Barnes. Lions score less than a minute later. So he cost them 7 points in that play by not fighting for a contested catch on a slant. He also, and this didn't cost Dallas, but it easily could have. The very next drive, Dallas is down 18 points. They're in the red zone. Ryan Schottenheimer, the head coach, is like, hey, let's go for it. Right? We need a touchdown. We need 7 points. Let's get back into this game. Dak hits CeeDee Lamb. Dak hits George Pickens on a slant. He gets the first down. Brother, go down. You've got the first. Let's live to see another play. Instead, he has the ball palmed in his hands for a Lion defender to punch out, which they do. Fortunately for Dallas, they recover the fumble, but it could have cost them 7 points there. Also, this is after CeeDee Lamb's gone down, by the way. 3rd down and long. This is before Aubrey hits a 63-yard field goal, but Dallas would like to get closer. This was the big knock on George Pickens in Pittsburgh. One of them, at least, is that defensive coordinators, defensive players would watch him, would literally just look at his body language and be like, he's not getting the ball. We know either he's not getting the ball, or if he does get it, there's no chance for him to do anything after the catch. Like if it's like a 3rd down and 15 and he's running like a 5-yard, curl route, he's not doing anything after the catch if you wrap him up on the spot. His body language would tell you that. He would be disengaged, disinterested, and that would be it. You saw it in that play I think it was the 3rd quarter of that game against Detroit, where it's a little quick, a quick curl route. Dak throws in the pass and he kind of half fights for it. And then maybe worst of all, even by the way, earlier in the game, Dak throws him a pass over the middle and he stops mid-route. Last drive of the game for Dallas. Again, the chances of winning the game at this point, pretty slim. There's 2 minutes left. They're down 14 points, but they got a couple of timeouts, so they could, in theory, get the ball back with some time. Dak, one of the better deep throwers in the game. We've talked about in the show, by Pro Football Focus, one of the best deep throwers in the game. Beautiful over-the-top go ball to George Pickens, who's open, who's got a step on the Lions DB, and just watches it go by him. Like, pulls back. Instead of, if nothing else, Pickens, if you're not going to house call that, if you're not going to catch it, take it for a touchdown, I've always said this about Pickens. He's the best receiver I've ever seen at drawing pass interference. At least fight for the football, maybe draw some contact. Hey, we get a 50-yard penalty. Now Dallas is back in business. But he was in his head. He was in his feelings. A lot of Cowboys fans, and I've got a lot of friends. I used to be a Cowboys fan. Got a lot of friends of mine. People in my family who are Cowboys fans. And they've said, oh, man, Pittsburgh, they messed up on that one. You have all the bad offseason moves the Steelers made last year, culminating in the Aaron Rodgers signing. That one might have been the worst, trading George Pickens. And I said, listen, God knows I'm not going to defend Mike Tomlin very often in the show. I'm not going to defend Steelers management with their tone deafness to offense. But they made the right call there. And I'll be honest, and she's watching. Shout out to Addison Ragland, my former co-host, along with Asher Moore on the Triple Option Sports Show last fall, who was... we used to go back and forth on air about George Pickens because her thing was, yeah, I know he's talented, but he's also, a head case, is not always engaged in all those things. I'd say, yeah, but when you get in the ball? And then over time, whether it would be him fighting Browns defensive backs in the middle of a Hail Mary, whether it would be firearm celebrations that would cost the Steelers 15 yards, whether it was him in this final home game as a Steeler literally threatening fans on the sidelines. See, I'm good. I'm out. I can't do it anymore. I'll take a guy with slightly less talent, but I know what I'm getting out of him. I know his head's always in the game. I know he's team first. The reason George Pickens has been his best behavior is for two reasons. Number one, because Dak Prescott's his quarterback. And Dak, I mean, we've known this. You could say whatever you want about him as a player. I don't know how you could put the loss on him last night. Dak is the consummate professional. Shows up to work, does his thing, gets the best out of everybody, not just in terms of their production, but in terms of how they go about their business in the locker room. Dak's the guy. So he's gotten the best out of George Pickens. But more so than that, he's looking for a new contract. This is the last year of his rookie deal. He wants to get paid. Of course he does. Who doesn't? So he's been on his best behavior. But is it on the board that maybe Jerry Jones, the Jones family are playing it? We know Jerry likes to do this. Did with Micah, he traded Micah. Did with Dak, paid Dak at the 11th hour before the season started a year ago. Maybe told George Pickens' agent, we'll wait till after the season to negotiate a new deal. Think Pickens might have been in his feelings last night. You think the fact that, again, Dallas needed him. You think this might come into fruition as well? Dak when targeting Pickens. First 11 games, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick, a 135 rating. Last 2 games, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Completing 50% of his throws and a passer rating of 29, which is about as bad as it gets. He's in his head. He's unreliable. You cannot count on him over the course of a 3.5-4 month season to be ready to go emotionally. And Richard Sherman, kudos to Richard Sherman, man. He called it out last night. Here's what Richard Sherman said about George Pickens' effort.
The big story here is George Pickens. George Pickens throughout the game, especially late in the game, just looked uninterested in playing football. And that's what you can't have. If you're going to be a superstar, if you want to be the best receiver in the National Football League, you can never be disengaged. It doesn't matter if the game's going your way or not going your way. You can't just disappear in these games or else you're not going to have impact. And just right here, cruising routes. You're the guy. CD Lamb is not in this game. He's out, and you get intercepted on your slant routes, and you can't be the guy and half-ass it. And I'm sorry, that's just, you can't, it's unacceptable. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're looking at him and you're looking to pay him big-time receiver money, $40 million, you got to look at this tape and say, hey, is this a guy we can trust paying $40 million to show up regardless of circumstance? I don't know.
And we try to keep this a family-friendly show, so we won't show what George Pickens said in response to Richard Sherman, but what you need to know is he responded to Richard Sherman, who, by the way, Richard Sherman was not a perfect player. He was the second best player to Bobby Wagner on one of the greatest defenses in the history of the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom. I think Richard Sherman knows a thing or two what he's talking about when it comes to he can observe as a former corner, the effort that a guy's given. Heck, us regular people watching football could observe. Yeah, he wasn't giving it his all. The effort was not there. I tend to be somebody who's very anti-franchise tag. It's the ultimate. It's like if you're in a relationship and it's like you're in that in-between area of like you've been dating a long time, but you also won't commit to marriage. And you're like in this in-between weird, kind of uncomfortable area where one person's waiting for the other to act one way or the other. I hate the franchise tag, which is 1 year. For those who don't know, franchise tag, 1 year deal, pays you the average salary of the top 5 players at your position. I tend to be anti-franchise tag. That is the perfect candidate. Because if Dallas gives this guy a long-term extension, and by the way, I have been of the mindset, man, Dak's never had a legit number 2 in years. When a lot of these quarterbacks have. You put a number 2 opposite CD Lamb, oh, what a shocker. Dak's having the best year of his career. But did you notice late in that game? Dak, after one, we'll play Dak's soundbite. He was again, consummate professional, great leader. But Dak was going to Ryan Flournoy, to Gavontae Turpin, to Jake Ferguson. He's like, these guys don't have half the talent of this guy. But I trust them to give everything they got to make contested catches, to make plays at the top, to get us back in this game. Don't trust number 3. Is it if you pay this guy? Okay. Money, like alcohol, is truth serum. Just makes you more what you are. It's like if you're a giving, generous person, If you are someone who's like that and then over time gains more, means, so to speak, you're going to be more generous. And then if you're greedy, same thing. Money makes you more what you already are. So you think by paying George Pickens, he's going to become less the head case? Guys, this is the same dude who at Georgia, when Jarrett Garantano, former quarterback of Tennessee, runs out of bounds near George Pickens squirts Gatorade at him. Like, I mean, this is who he is. So how can I be surprised in any way, shape, or form? I mean, like this is, and again, Dak was the consummate professional after the game. Here's what Dak had to say about his teammates.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure George will tell you it wasn't his best game. And, when CD got out of the game, told him he needed to step up, he made some catches, right? Made the catch right there to put us down there at the one on the fourth down. He made some plays. Now, to Georgia's standard, that's tough. When you're playing the way that he's played, when you're the type of player that he is, I'll be the first to say it's hard to do that week in and week out. But I think George can. I know George believes he can, and I think he would just say that this game wasn't up to his standard. And I'm sure he'll own it, and I know he'll be better.
Listen, I've always told the story that I went to a Tennessee game in 2019 when they were taking on Georgia. And I remember watching warmups. I'd never heard of George Pickens. It was 2019. And I remember we were sitting on the side of the field where the Georgia players were warming up. And I'm watching this guy. I'm like, who the heck is this dude? I mean, he's making one-handed over the helmet catches. Like, who is this guy? And I'm going on Google like George Pickens. Oh my gosh, he's going to be the next Randy Moss. He's shown that ability from time to time. Again, the Steelers did not trade George Pickens because he wasn't talented. That was never the problem. It was stuff like what you saw last night. And it's stuff like that, if you're the Cowboys, be very careful giving that guy a long-term extension. I will leave it at that. So, again, for you Cowboys fans that were, just like, we stole him. Maybe for this year, he's certainly been net positive for the Cowboys. But do you want him as a long-term number 2 to CeeDee Lamb? Receiver's one of the easiest positions to find in the draft. I'm sure Jerry and the Cowboys could find one in the second or third round that maybe isn't quite as talented, but you know what you're getting out of him. You know the effort's always going to be there. You know he's going to be on the same page with Dak. So last night was validation. And again, she just texted me. Shout out again to Addison Ragland because she was correct about this. I wish, maybe we can look into the archives of the radio station on campus and try and find some of those, back and forth debates between her and I about George Pickens back when he was in Pittsburgh. But over time, I was like, yeah, you're right about this. Not everybody's going to be a choir boy. That's not realistic to ask. And we're not going to ask a receiver to be as mature as a quarterback. But we do ask and demand, you're in the NFL, man. Give every single thing you've got in every single play, especially when you're counted on to do so. When CeeDee Lamb, who's dominating, goes out with a concussion. And Dak is getting his teeth kicked in behind that bad offensive line. And he can't trust you to make a catch, to give all out effort on a play, to block. That's the story of George Pickens, and you saw it last night. All right, let's transition to the NBA. Because in the last few days, and again, I didn't want to talk about it on Wednesday's show only because I didn't think we had quite enough information as plus I wanted to do the Chris Paul story. I wanted to save it for Friday's show. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who, in my humble opinion, is the second best player in basketball. Jokic is the best. I got Giannis number 2. And then number 3 is kind of a battle between Shea and Luka. You can make a case one way or the other. Then probably Wemby after that. All international guys. Shows that the NBA has expanded. But Giannis is outstanding. The man is averaging basically 29 a game on 63% shooting. I've said it for years on this show. He is the greatest player within 5 feet of the basket since Shaquille O'Neal. What he is doing, he's not as dominant as Shaq. Shaq was getting, just hacked and fouled and, just abused in the paint and was still putting up the numbers that he was putting up with the Los Angeles Lakers and obviously with Orlando and for a time in Miami. But this is what this guy's doing. This is what he's capable of. And according to reports, according to Shams, Giannis, his agent, Bucks management are internally discussing whether or not Milwaukee is the best option for him long-term. And what I would say to that is this. This is almost like and the Oscar goes to, it's inevitable. The winner has already been decided. It's just the celebrity goes up on the stage, they've got the card in their hands, and the Oscar goes to Robert De Niro. I mean, that's how it goes. Giannis is going to be traded. This is just the early stages of that. It's inevitable. Is that when Brian Windhorst reports from ESPN that Giannis asked for a trade before the season started. Giannis requested a trade at Milwaukee. He was like, I want to go win elsewhere. And over time, he's kind of talked into, because let's be honest, Giannis does not want to be the bad guy. He does not want to be viewed by Milwaukee as Cleveland viewed LeBron in 2010 and as Oklahoma City viewed Durant in 2016. What I would say to Giannis is, again, while I defend both of those guys for making the decisions that they made, you will not be viewed that way in Milwaukee. Like that's, and any idiot Bucks fan, and it'll probably be like 5 dopes on the internet. Outside of that, the city loves you. I mean, you came in there as, 18, 19-year-old kid from Greece, no one had ever heard of. And over time, you become a 2-time league MVP, a defensive player of the year, and most importantly, for you and for that city, an NBA champion, in which in Game 6 in 2021, you scored 50 points to win the title. You are going to get a statue outside of Fiserv Forum Arena. There's no question. Like that is, Milwaukee is your city. They will understand. And frankly, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that has almost no draft capital, are in cap hell right now, it would be best for them long term to move on from not Giannis, because God knows you're going to get a haul for him. So the question is, where does he go? The betting favorite in Vegas is the New York Knicks, who reportedly, there have been sources around that have said Giannis wants to go to the Knicks. And I think I don't want to say in the here and now, because there's another team I'm going to suggest that he has a better chance to win a championship with, among realistic options, is if Giannis ends up in New York. Obviously, they give up Karl Anthony Towns, they give up some draft picks, but you pair him with Jalen Brunson. Because if you're in the New York Knicks today, here's the reality. The Eastern Conference is as bad as it's ever been. The Celtics are without their best player. For probably the season, he might come back, but I think that might not be the best idea for Jason Tatum, but we'll see how it plays out. Tyrese Halliburton's gone for the year from the defending conference champion Indiana Pacers, who are terrible without him. And Cleveland, it's early in the season, but Cleveland, team is supposed to challenge you. They're kind of average. It's the Knicks conference to lose, as long as they're healthy. But the goal in New York this year is to win the finals. And as stacked as the West is, again, if nothing else, NBA history is not on the New York Knicks side. We have never seen in the modern NBA a small player lead a team to a championship other than Isaiah Thomas with the Bad Boy Pistons and Steph Curry with the Warriors. That's it. And Steph, to me, is a top 10 player ever. I think Isaiah Thomas is a top 15 player of all time. Jalen Brunson, who knows? Maybe he could develop into that. Not putting it past him. He's a great playoff performer, clutch, all of it. But that's a lot to ask right now. And didn't we see last year kind of wore down? Even the year before that, he ended the playoffs injured. Now, some of that was Tom Thibodeau just running his starters on the ground. They don't have that problem now with Mike Brown. But you pair him with Giannis and that pick and roll, that's unstoppable. That's a team that, okay, you could see a scenario in which they are maybe not the Vegas favorites to win it because of what Oklahoma City is doing right now, but probably number 2. Certainly the runaway, the odds-on favorite to win the Eastern Conference. So the Knicks makes a ton of sense. It's just a matter of whether they have the assets that other teams have, such as the team that I think he's going to end up with, the San Antonio Spurs. What it comes down to for San Antonio is this. You've got Wemby, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox. That's kind of your core that you believe is going to lead you into the future. You've also got a young player that you drafted in the first round earlier this year by the name of Dylan Harper, who's been excellent. He's averaging 13 a game, having a nice rookie season. But you really don't need him. I mean, you just don't. Like you've got, you've got 3 guards basically that have all-star caliber potential. We know who De'Aaron Fox is. We know what Stephon Castle could be as he continues to develop. And Dylan Harper very much has that type of ability in him. But he doesn't necessarily fit long-term with the team they're trying to build around Wemby, the championship contender they're trying to build around Victor Wembanyama. So you give him up. You give up a ton of first-round picks. You probably have to include, like a Harrison Barnes in there or something to get Giannis. Because you pair, oh my gosh, you pair Giannis Antetokounmpo with Victor Wembanyama. The only way to beat the San Antonio Spurs is with threes. Like you are not going in the paint. The restricted area is quite that. It's restricted. No one's going in there with those 2 guys down low. Be a block city, block party. That's where I think he's going to end up in my gut. So I would say the Knicks are probably the second most likely. Some people suggested Houston. But that would include Houston giving up Şengün, and I don't think they do that the way he's playing. As he's just gotten better and better every year. KD's not going to be there forever, right? Like, KD is still great, but Şengün's the guy in the future. So is Amin Thompson, who I definitely would not move. My guess is the Houston Rockets do not make a move for Giannis. I'm probably about to do something that's not the wisest thing ever, but what the heck? We're just throwing out ideas here. The unwise thing that I'm going to be doing is challenging Sam Presti, who is the GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not just the best GM in the NBA, arguably up there with Howie Roseman with the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the best general managers in all of sports, one of the best executives in all of professional sports. Like, you do not do a deal with Sam Presti because you are going to lose. Look no further than the 2019 trade that sent Paul George to the Clippers and Shai Gilgeous and a plethora of draft picks to Oklahoma City. And you see how that's turned out for both teams. But with the number of picks Oklahoma City has in the coming years, they're 21-1. They're the defending NBA champions and certainly the favorites in Vegas to go back-to-back. I would go so far as to say it is hubris if the Thunder do not have to go after Giannis, because you can make a case they have the best package of anybody. If you look at, teams that have a legit chance to get him. The Knicks, the Rockets, the Spurs, Oklahoma City. If we're talking about championship contenders that can go after him. Along with Cat with the Knicks, they have the best player that they can give up, Jalen Williams. They'll have to give up Jalen Williams or Chet. My guess is they stick with Chet. They move on from Jalen Williams. If there's an injury history there, they move on from Jalen Williams. They've got an embarrassment of riches in draft picks. Next year they're going to have a freaking lottery pick because the Clippers, they have the Clippers pick, and the Clippers are terrible. They're 6-16. They're going to have an awful year. So that's enticing for Milwaukee Bucks that will be trying to reboot. So Jalen Williams, some picks, including your future lottery pick, to get Giannis. So now all of a sudden, for a defending NBA champion, you will have Shai, you will have Giannis, you will have Chet Holmgren. My question to the Oklahoma City Thunder is this, and we know you've hit on draft picks. What is the value of having those picks, as great as your team already is right now, if not to land a player like Giannis? That would be my question. So don't count Oklahoma City out of this. They have an opportunity to do something that my Golden State Warriors, albeit in free agency, did, but that the Warriors did, which is we're the 73 wins, won the championship the year prior to that, came a minute away from going back-to-back MVP and Steph Curry. This guy wants to be here, Kevin Durant. Let's get him. And by the way, if you're Giannis, there's not the pressure that KD had in 2016 because Giannis has already won. There's no you had to join an all-star. No. Giannis already won a championship. That's for the rest of his life. NBA champion 2021 and finals MVP. What's the point of having those picks? What are you going to just add more depth? I guess you could, but you're going to have to hit on a lot of draft picks in the hard cap, second apron, era of the NBA, which I hate, but that's the reality that we're in. I think Sam Presti would be, this sounds crazy to say about the best team in the league, but not doing his due diligence if he does not at least call the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, if you're Milwaukee, of course, here's the thing too for the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Houston, or not Houston, New York Knicks in Milwaukee's conference. I don't know how much the Bucks necessarily care about that, but that's something that they would take into consideration without a question. They don't care if the Thunder are good. The Bucks know they're not going to be contending for the next 4 or 5 years. They're just going to try and rebuild this thing, get some draft picks, clear out their cap. Jalen Williams is a good player to have in their squad. All-star caliber guy. I'm just saying, it would be hubris if the Thunder do not at least give a call to the Bucks. Because if that happens, it breaks the league. Like straight up, you got Shai, Giannis, Chet, the depth that you have with, Caruso and Casey Wallace, and that's terrifying. They can do it. It works. If you put it in the trade machine, it's possible. And by the way, Dagnall's a great coach. So that would be incredible. I know, listen, I'm a Warriors fan. I want my team to win. Duh. And I know my team has, just like everybody, would have no shot against the Thunder, should they pull that off. But to have a true blue villain in the NBA, which we have not had since the Steph, Durant, Clay, Draymond Warriors, that'd be kind of fun. It really, really would be. And with that, we will go to break. But when we come back, the LeBron James streak, double-digit scoring streak, has come to an end. And it did so in the most LeBron way possible. I think exactly the way that he would have wanted it and would have scripted it. We will talk about that after the break here on Carving Up Live. Of course, after that, college football, conference championship predictions, and of course, week 14 NFL predictions. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this 1-minute break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody tuning in on this Friday. Again, just so much to discuss. The NBA is the gift that keeps on giving as it pertains to storylines. Like, I mean, even last year, just when it looked like it was getting a little quiet, a little sleepy, bam, here comes the Luka trade that shocked the world. Forget America, shocked the world and the whole sports world. So, speaking of the guy that has been the face of the league for almost my entire life, I was born, LeBron James was drafted, I think June 25th of 2003. I was born 3 days later. So LeBron has been in the NBA longer than I have been alive. So he's dominated the league for that long. And last night, one of the greatest streaks in the history of American team sports came to an end. LeBron James did not score 10 or more points in a regular season game. That has not happened. I checked my notes since January 5th, 2007. It's been that long. And it came to an end last night in perfect. Again, if we had the rights to show the video without being demonetized, we would do so. Feel free to look it up on YouTube while you're watching the show. Of course, that's what we're encouraging. But last play of the game, Austin Reeves is having the game of his life. He's got 40. And so Austin Reeves has had a great year in general, but he's got 44 against the Toronto Raptors, who've been playing good basketball this year. Bron's been awful. He's 4 for 17. He's got 8 points. Awful in terms of scoring. He's been distributing the ball. He's got 10 assists at this point. Austin Reeves, the hot man, gets doubled, kicked it to LeBron. LeBron's got a clear path. He's got a freeway to the basket. He's got an opportunity. It's going to be a tough shot, but if he lays it in, 10 points, streak continues, game over, Bron's the hero, streak continues. If he misses, we go to, because the game is tied. We go to overtime, and LeBron almost certainly keeps the streak going. He's going to score 2 in overtime. Nope. LeBron James says, it's in his psyche. He's played basketball for his whole life. It's ingrained in him at this point. I'm going to make the right play. I could try a tough shot here, but Rui Hachimura is open in the left corner. Kick it out to him. Rui hits the shot at the buzzer. Lakers win. So for context on this streak, and then we'll get into the psychological aspect of why I love this so much for LeBron. So, for context, most consecutive games scoring double-digit points all time. LeBron has the record 1,297. Michael Jordan is in second, 866. LeBron is 400 games ahead of Michael. Kareem is in third, 787. Karl Malone, 575. Kevin Durant, 562. Last time LeBron James scored less than 10 points in a regular season game. Got this list here. Kevin Durant was at Texas. Steph Curry was at Davidson. Allen Iverson was playing for the Denver Nuggets. Kyrie Irving was in high school. Just keep going down the list here. James Harden, I think he was also in high school. That's where we're at. That's the, Blake Griffin playing in high school. Now he's retired. Bron's still going. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nick Wright pulled this stat, and it's insane. Kevin Durant's got the longest streak. I think he's like at 260. I want to make sure I get the numbers right. Kevin Durant's like at 262 or something, because he's now the longest active holder of the streak. Kevin Durant's at 267 consecutive games, scoring 10 or more points. So obviously Katie's not going to catch him. He's 37, 38 years old. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is in second place. Shai has scored 10 or more points, 170 straight games. For Shai to pass LeBron in this stretch, this is wild. He will have to play every single game from here until the 2039-2040 NBA season when he's 41 years old. Think about that. Shai will have to not miss a game. And if he does, which I'm sure he will, guys are going to miss games with injuries. What will he be, 45? Like, that's not going to happen. So this is one of the most, there are unbreakable records in NBA history. When you talk about, didn't Will average like 51 years? Like, that's never going to be touched. Stockton's assist, frankly, and his steals record, probably untouchable. Steph, I don't want to go so far as saying untouchable because the game has changed so much, but Steph's going to be really hard to catch in the three-point makes. I would argue LeBron's all-time scoring streak, all-time scoring record, might never be touched. This one, nobody's touching it. It's just not happening. So, from a historical context, that's what's going on with LeBron. What I loved about it, seeing the end of that game, and I'm a Warriors fan, so I never like to see the Lakers win, but I do love LeBron James. I got a lot of respect for that guy. Battled my Warriors 4 straight years in the finals. Love the guy. I've told this story many times in the show, but I think it's apt to tell it in this context. There's a great book by Jeff Benedict. I probably should have brought it down here, although that would have been seen as like a book promotion, but I guess I'm kind of doing that now. Jeff Benedict, one of the best sports authors out there. He actually wrote the book on the Patriots that became the Apple TV Plus series that people kind of didn't like. I haven't seen the series. The book's great, The Dynasty. Well, he wrote a book a few years later. It's literally just called LeBron. It's got his picture on the front when he was with the Miami Heat. It's a great, great read. And there's a point in the book early on. LeBron is, I think he's like 7, 8, 9 years old. He's a kid. And as you might imagine, 7, 8, or 9-year-old LeBron James is dominating everybody. Like, can you imagine? Just put yourself in that spot. You're 9 years old playing 9-year-old LeBron James. He's cooking you, okay? Of course he is. But he was a selfish teammate. He wouldn't pass the ball. He scored at will. Again, 9-year-old LeBron James, sure he was. His teammates kind of didn't like him for that. Coach pulls him to the side. And he says, you're the best player on our team. Something along these lines, like, you're the best player on our team, but your teammates won't like you, or your teammates will like you if you give them opportunities and make the right play within the offense, get them the basketball, get them going so that there's a more of a flow in the offense than just one guy playing hero ball. That's the gist of what he said. I would make the case, and Benedict kind of does make the case in the book. That's the turning point of LeBron James's basketball life. Because, and again, we're getting deeper. We're getting LeBron's personal life here, but this is a guy, as we all know, single parent household. Dad was never in the picture, no siblings. LeBron, through a lot of his adolescent life, was kind of lonely. And so when you have a coach kind of tell him, these kids kind of can't stand you because you won't pass them the ball, because you won't play within the flow of the offense. Man, that changes something in a kid. And that's why that, combined with just outstanding basketball IQ, maybe the best we've ever seen, is why LeBron did make the right play to Kyle Korver in the 2017 finals. Why he did make the right play to George Hill in 2018. What do you want LeBron to do? Shoot over 4 guys? No. Oh, Kobe would have done it. God rest his soul. Love Kobe Bryant. Didn't mean it was a good shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, and by the way, the whole LeBron's not clutch. I don't know. He's got the most buzzer beaters in playoff history. He's pretty clutch. That's something. He's all-time leading scorer in Game 7s. He's pretty good. He's lost one Game 7 in his career. Pretty good in those spots. So when watching that, I absolutely loved it. Loved it. Never like when the Lakers win, but loved that moment for LeBron. And he talked about it after the game. And it's a perfect quote. He was asked about whether he cared that the streak ended.
Now that the streak has ended for you, what feelings did you have, if any, what about it ended?
None. We won.
And I think he's being genuine there. Like, yeah, I played to win the game. Like, that's because for those that have been out there and saying, oh, LeBron's only playing at this point in his career. He's trying to stat pad. He's trying to create any avenue in which, he could catch Jordan, because in some people's eyes, he will never catch Michael Jordan. He could win 5 more championships. He will never go 6 for 6 like MJ did. And again, I'm a guy that thinks LeBron's the GOAT, but I'm also in the minority of people that thinks it's razor thin. The Jordan fans think it's not close. LeBron fans think that it's not close. They're both out of their minds. It's razor thin. LeBron James is still playing basketball for one reason. He loves it. You know how hard it is, especially at his age, 41 years old. He's about to be 41 years old. Year 23. No one's played this long, ever. 23 years in the NBA. You know how hard it is to keep to play the minutes that he does, particularly in the playoffs. The minutes have been cut down by JJ Redick, obviously, because wasn't in training camp, came into the season hurt, the whole bit. But to go through an 82-game season, all the travels, all the flights, then you got playoffs, the intensity that comes with that, and all of those consecutive years of championship contention. The man went to 8 finals, for crying out loud, in a row. You think that doesn't take its toll on the body and on the mind? Folks, there's a reason Jordan retired. I know people think it's because of it was a quiet suspension by the league for gambling. Yes, because I'm sure David Stern took his moneymaker away from the league. That did not happen. Jordan told a reporter privately he was going to retire after he won a 3rd straight championship in 93. Different conversation for a different podcast. But Jordan retired twice. Because, understandably so, that's a lot of the body. Finals after finals after finals, after being the number one option, after having to score 30 a game, and it takes a toll on your body and on your mind. And LeBron James has done this 23 straight years. Why? Why is he still playing? Because he loves the game of basketball. That's why. Players love to play. That's the lesson. You look at all the greats in the history of sports. There are a few exceptions, but by and large, all of the true blue legends, it's love of the game. It's love of what they do. And there's almost like a purity of that. I've said many times on the show, in any industry, there's something, for me personally, there's something about watching somebody do what they love, and you can see it. Like Simone Biles is the greatest gymnast of all time. Simone freaking loves gymnastics. Steph Curry loves basketball. Mahomes the intensity. Love that from my athletes. And that's what you see from LeBron James. He is playing because he loves the game. Folks, he had an opportunity to keep the streak going. If he's so obsessed with stats, if he makes the shot, he wins. Streak continues and he wins the game. He hits a buzzer beater. If he misses, okay, we go to overtime and I can get it there. But no, I'm here to play a basketball game and to win a basketball game. Rui Hachimura's open the corner. Rui does his job, hits the shot, and we win the game. By the way, one more stat and we'll move on. LeBron James. More finals appearances than single-digit scoring games. Wow. 10 finals appearances, 9 games scoring under 10 points. Enough said. Let's move to NFL predictions. Well, actually, not before we get to NFL predictions. Of course, we got to do some college football stuff because it is championship weekend. Before we get into that, though, it's an opportunity to plug Saturday morning tailgate tomorrow. Tomorrow, Saturday morning tailgate podcast, live at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, right here on the Grid Network's YouTube channel and on X. Myself, Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst, we'll all be here in the morning to break down college football championship Saturday. We've got a reaction to the playoff rankings, the last one before the official ones that come, the official rankings, playoff poll that comes out on Sunday afternoon. talk about that, talk about some of the matchups, the Miami-Notre Dame debate, the BYU debate. I mean, it's going to be a blast. What's not going to be a blast for me is having to eat crow on my takes on Tennessee Vanderbilt. What is going to be fun for me is watching Tim Barnard sing Rocky Top. Tim Barnard's a Florida fan. I'm a Vols fan. And we had a bet. If Florida wins, then I had to do the Gator Chop for 5 straight minutes on the show. If Tennessee won, which we did, Tim Barnard has to sing Rocky Top on the Saturday morning tailgate. So it's going to be about as lively a show as we've had thus far in our first season. So again, do us all a favor. Check out the Saturday morning tailgate tomorrow morning live at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time right here on the grid via YouTube and on Twitter. I promise you are in for a treat. So with that being said, college football is, boy, it's heating up. And man, this is why you love the sport. Championship Saturday. First of all, we got a 2 conference championship games tonight. One that, kicks off like literally in a few minutes. Troy and James Madison. James Madison, by the way, hired Billy Napier, former Florida coach, to be their new head coach. But James Madison at home, Sun Belt championship game, favored by 24.5 points. Again, even if James Madison wins, they probably don't get in as the 12th seed. It will almost certainly be the winner of the American Championship game, and that is where we will get the background music going. Here we go for college football conference championship predictions. So here we go. We will start with the American Championship game. The North Texas Mean Green taking on Tulane in the American Championship game. North Texas is a favorite by 1.5. So, or actually, when I put it into the graphic, I think it was 2.5. So it looks like people are betting Tulane. So listen, there's a lot of aspects of this game that are fun to watch. You're going to see a lot of points. That's what I will say. On North Texas' side, they've got a quarterback by the name of Drew Mestamaker, a really talented quarterback, 29 touchdowns, 4 picks. North Texas has one of the best offenses in the country, probably the best offense, most productive in the country. So to see them in the playoff, not like they're going to go on a run, but it'd be fun. I think it's better for the sport if North Texas gets in as the 12th seed, as the group of 5, winner. But there's something, again, I have been in the American Conference. Memphis was my pick before the season to be the 12th seed in the playoff. When Tulane beat them, about a month ago, I was like, okay, I think I'm in on Tulane now to be the 12th seed. So I'm going to stick with that. We have the graphic here. I'm going to go with Tulane over North Texas, 30-24 to win the American Championship game. They will be the 12th seed. College football playoff, that's how I think it's going to play out. Tulane over North Texas, 30-24. I will say I'm kind of pulling for North Texas because just for offensive firework explosion, maybe potential upset in the playoff purposes, I would like to see them get in, but I've got Tulane getting the job done. For the games tomorrow, Power 4 championship games. Big 12, BYU, Texas Tech from Jerry World. Red Raiders are 12.5-point favorites in this game. That's BYU's only loss this season, 29-7 against Texas Tech earlier in the year, about a month ago. That's again, and a lot of BYU fans are like, how are we not in the playoff? Our resume, by the numbers, is better than Notre Dame's. They're not wrong in that assessment. They'll have an opportunity to prove it on Saturday. Beat Texas Tech, you're in. Simple as that. You are in the playoff if you beat the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who are the number 4 ranked team in the country, deservedly so. They have crushed the competition in the Big 12. Great offense, run the football effectively. And in Jerry World, they know they have an opportunity, folks, to put themselves in a position where they can get a first-round bye. They don't want to take that opportunity lightly. I'm going to go with Texas Tech over BYU, 34-20. Again, I feel like Texas Tech is going to jump out in front. BYU is going to be kind of playing catch-up the rest of the way. Red Raiders, minus 12.5. They win 34-20. They win the Big 12, and they will get an automatic bye in the college football playoff. Up next, oh baby, SEC championship game. As loaded, as jam-packed, as chaotic as the SEC was this year. You had A&M, and you had Texas and Vanderbilt and all of these teams making Ole Miss, all this noise, Oklahoma. Of course, the SEC comes down to the 2 Titans that have run the conference for a decade. It is the Georgia Bulldogs. It is the Alabama Crimson Tide from Atlanta, Georgia. Dogs are favored minus 2.5. So it's going to be a great game. Here's what I'll say. Obviously, these two teams faced each other earlier in the year in Athens. It was the first time the Georgia Bulldogs have lost at home in like 5 years, which was also to Alabama. The Tide got the W in Athens. That's kind of their big signature win of the year. Both teams are going to be in the college football playoff, no question about it. The question is, because Georgia, obviously, if Georgia wins, they're going to be a top 4 seed. Bama wins, they'll have an argument. Wait a second, you beat Georgia twice? Pretty good on the resume. But here's what I look at. Kirby Smart, the stats been thrown out all week. 1-7 against Alabama in his career. That one win, came in the national championship game in 2021. What did that game in 2020? It was actually technically early 22, but it was the 2021 season. When they beat Alabama to win their first national championship in 35 years or something. What did that game have in common with this one? Georgia played Bama a second time. In other words, we know it's that we hear the cliche mostly in the NFL, like it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, right? If you're talking about a divisional opponent, right? If a division team swept you twice in the regular season, it's hard to beat them again in the postseason. College football, it's kind of the same thing. It's hard to beat a team twice, especially when both teams are almost equivalent in terms of talent. So that bodes well for Georgia. This, as it always is, the Dogs are in the SEC championship game. It is a home game for the Georgia Bulldogs. That simple. It's in Atlanta. Enough said there. Gunnar Stockton's played good football. I like, Zachariah Brown? Zachariah Branch, I'm sorry. Zachariah Branch, who's been a good pickup for them, been a good, receiver for them. DeBoer, there was the rumors that he might go to Penn State. They ended up hiring Matt Campbell, which is a good move for the Nittany Lions, but there's is DeBoer going to leave if they lose this game? And what's going to happen? And I think all of those things favor Georgia in a major, major way. So that is why I'm going with the Alabama Crimson Tide to win this football game, 26-23 over the Georgia Bulldogs. Bama claims the SEC championship game once again and for the first time in the Kalen DeBoer era. Listen, I hate Alabama with a passion. I'm a Vols fan. By the way, that song you sing at the games, that song is about Tennessee, by the way, Bama fans. Don't ever forget that. I pulled the Pat McAfee there to a lesser degree. McAfee did the drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan song, which was better. But I do think Bama's going to win this game. I think Ty Simpson's going to play well. I like the Bama receiving core. I think Gunnar Stockton's going to make a couple of mistakes in this game. He's been relatively mistake-free. Not so much in that game against Alabama about 2 months ago. So this could be a spot that favors the Alabama Crimson Tide. If they get the W, they will be the SEC champions. Then, you know what? Let's leave the Big Ten championship game for last because it would be a dud to end with the ACC because it's far and away the worst conference championship games, including the ones tonight. Excuse me. It's the Duke Blue Devils, who are 7-5. The tiebreakers, the ACC, y'all got to fix those. Those are terrible. Duke versus Virginia. Virginia is the 17th ranked team in the nation. Obviously, if Virginia wins, they'll be in the playoff. If Duke wins, the ACC might be left without any teams. So that's why I'm a fan of chaos. I'm going with Duke. I picked him along with Tim Barnard on the Saturday morning tailgate to beat Virginia a few weeks ago. They weren't able to get the job done. Again, it's hard to beat a team twice. Duke, in the weirdest year in ACC history, is going to go 8-5 and win the ACC championship game, which will kick Virginia out of playoff contention. That means, well, I guess it means technically something different for seeding. We'll touch on that in a second. Excuse me. It's the classic number 1 versus number 2. I mean, who does it get any better than this? The best team in the nation, the second best team in the nation. Big Ten title game, Indianapolis, and it'll be a home game for the designated visiting team. The Indiana Hoosiers, number 2 ranked, undefeated. The defending national champion, Ohio State Buckeyes, number 1 in the nation, also undefeated. It's as good as it gets, folks. Buckeyes are favored -4. So, I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring game. Both teams have excellent defenses. Obviously, Ohio State, the weapons they bring on the offensive side of the ball are off the charts. Jeremiah Smith's the best receiver in all of college football, and Carnell Tate is one of the best receivers in college football. This feels like it could be like a tiebreaker for the Heisman Trophy. It's going to be Julian Sand, quarterback for Ohio State, or it's going to be Fernando Mendoza, quarterback for Indiana, who may be a potential first pick in next year's draft. I would give the vote to Fernando just because I think he's working with less at Indiana. Although, Omar Cooper, who's the one who made the insane toe tap catch to beat Penn State, is an excellent player. They run the football effectively. Indiana's taking care of business. My prediction, folks, kind of a defensive battle early. offenses start to get it going late. I think Jeremiah Smith makes a couple of big plays down the field. And when it's all said and done, by virtue of a stop on the potential Heisman Trophy winner, give me the defending champion Buckeyes to win the Big Ten championship game 28-24. You see right there, I think it's a straight push. Ohio State's a 4-point favorite. That's how much I think they're going to win by. 28-24 over the Indiana Hoosiers. The Buckeyes, the defending national champion, Arthur Hurst's beloved team, are going to be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. Where does that leave us? Or at least where do I think that leaves us as far as how the playoff seeding looks? Well, glad you asked. And then we'll get into NFL picks. How the playoff formulates, I believe, will look as follows. The top 4 seeds in this order and getting a first round bye will be Ohio State number 1. I think Texas Tech, by virtue of Georgia losing, because I think they will, and by virtue of Indiana losing, albeit close, Texas Tech will be the 2 seed. Indiana, close game with Ohio State. They've been great all season. They lost by 4 to the Buckeyes. We're not going to punish them that much. They're going to be the 3 seed. And I think the committee is going to look at the fact that Bama, in this theory, that they beat Georgia twice. That's the only games Georgia's lost this season was to Alabama. Pretty impressive. The Crimson Tide will be the 4 seed. So Ohio State, Texas Tech, Indiana, Alabama, those will be your top 4 seeds and getting a first round bye. From there, the 5 seed will be Oregon. The 6 seed will be Georgia. The 7 seed, Ole Miss. 8 seed, A&M. 9 seed, Oklahoma. Here's where it gets interesting. By virtue of the ACC championship game playing out the way that I think it will, with Duke getting the W, and I think this is how it will play out, both Notre Dame and Miami get in the postseason as the 10 and 11 seeds respectively, with Tulane as the 12th. So all this debate, and we'll talk about it tomorrow on Saturday morning tailgate. I'm very much looking forward to it. Who should be in? Should it be Miami? Should it be Notre Dame? Notre Dame's ranked ahead of Miami, but Miami literally beat Notre Dame in week 1. Can't wait to discuss all of it. I think when it's all said and done, they're both getting in large part due to BYU losing to Texas Tech, which I think they will. So that will leave us with the matchups. Oregon, the 5 seed, will take on Tulane at Autzen Stadium. That place is going to be rocking. It's one of the best atmospheres in college football. Oregon should win that game. Then it will be the 6 seed Georgia Bulldogs taking on Miami. 2 blue blood brands in college football. That'll be fun from Athens. Dogs should win that one. Ole Miss, without their head coach, Lane Kiffin, will get a home game in Oxford against Notre Dame, the national championship runner-up. That'll be fun. And then finally, at Kyle Field, a good old-fashioned former Big 12, now SEC showdown, Texas A&M Aggies against the Oklahoma Sooners. That's how I think it's going to play out. That will be your college football playoff in 2025. I can't wait for tomorrow. This game's going to be great. Obviously, the SEC championship is going to be great. Big 12. Again, the matchup's fun. BYU, there's a lot in the line for them. I think Texas Tech is the better team. They should win that game relatively comfortably. But God, I can't wait for Ohio State and Indiana. It's going to be so fun. All right. When we come back, we're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, do Week 14 NFL predictions, including upset of the week. I'm going on a limb with this one, I must admit. Go out with Bryson's Bleak Bet, and of course, my favorite segment of all time, looking for our first 3-0 week of the season. I'm calling it. It's going to happen this week. I love my picks this week if I were a Batman. So, do all those in just 1 minute here on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in on a Friday. Real quick before I get to Week 14 picks, Chris Haynes, who's one of the best insiders in the NBA, he reached out to Chris Paul. He just tweeted this about a few minutes ago. He said that he reached out to Chris Paul, who we obviously talked about in the show on Wednesday, the fact that the Clippers let him go, which was just I won't use colorful language on the show, it's family-friendly show, but a pretty crappy move on the Clippers' part, releasing the best player in the history of your franchise on his retirement tour. That's pretty messed up, especially the fact that his family has lived in LA this whole time while he's been playing for Houston and Phoenix and Golden State and San Antonio. Now he comes back home and you release him. That's messed up. Chris Haynes reached out to Chris Paul regarding his future, and the response he got, quote, "I'm still scarred by it all, still processing everything, but I'm staying ready." So that, and he also said, "I'm hooping right now." So that tells me, and this isn't a surprise at all, Chris Paul wants to come back. Like a guy that great, in my opinion, and we can have this discussion another day, but one of the 5 greatest point guards ever, he can't go out like that. I mean, he just can't. Not released by the team in which he was the best player in their history. Released because his leadership rubbed people the wrong way. He's too great of a player to go out like that. It's either going to be the Lakers or it's going to be Oklahoma City. That's what my gut tells me. Because the Lakers, there's a relationship with LeBron. He would stay in LA, which is where his family's at. And then Oklahoma City, he obviously played there for a year. He mentored Shea, and he might have an opportunity to go out with a ring, which would be kind of cool. Because, well, I always hated the fact that CP3 didn't have a ring. I'm in the minority. I'm the minority of Warriors fans that, loves LeBron and loves Chris Paul. I'm in the ultra minority of fans that feel that way. And evidently loves Steve Kerr. I'm the majority of Warriors fans that cannot stand Brandon Pajemski, and we will leave it at that. All right, let's get into Week 14 NFL predictions. Before I give my picks, let's go and look at how I did last week and in totality. So last week, 11-5, 10-6, against the spread, not bad. Overall record, 124, 69-1. Against the spread, 8 games under 500, but it's been worse. So I'm making a bit of a comeback in that regard. Upset of the week is 5-8. Again, that 4-game upset streak feels like a million years ago. Upsets are hard to pick, and this one's going to be a doozy. Bleak bet, that's about what I thought it'd be. 6-7. There you go. Right there at 500. And of course, my favorite segment of all time, if I were a bet man, 15-24. However, I did go 2-1 last week. And I always say it every week. We are in December, and I still have not had a 3-0 if I were a bet man. But I'm telling y'all, if I were a bet man, I would go with the games I'm going with this week. I'm just trying to win y'all money. Okay, that's what we're doing on the show. So let's go and get into NFL predictions. Here we go. All right, we will start with let's just get it over with. It's time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. It's one game each and every week that I've absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. And I'm starting with my Pittsburgh Steelers going to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens are favored -5.5. You never know what you're going to get when these two teams square off. For years, it was always like, it's Ravens, it's Steelers. Doesn't matter how good or bad the quarterbacks are. Doesn't matter whether Tomlin or Harbaugh are on their game. Doesn't matter how good or bad the defenses are. It's always like 17-14 or 20-17 if it's a really high-scoring game. Always bet the unders for Steelers-Ravens games historically. However, in the playoffs last year, lost by double digits. In the regular season, with the division on the line, lost by double digits. Did the Steelers to the Baltimore Ravens. This game's in Baltimore. There's also the part of me that says Lamar Jackson, and I think we can show you the stats, has been awful in his last 3 games. Here you go. No touchdowns, 5 turnovers. Man's got a 63 rating. He's been sacked 8 times. He's been terrible. Probably the worst 3-game stretch in Lamar Jackson's NFL career. So he's not been good. You know what else hasn't been good? The Steelers' rush defense. Just gave up, 280-something yards to the Buffalo Bills last week? That's bad. Josh Allen did his thing. James Cook really did his thing. And now you got to face a team that's got Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. That's bad news for the Steelers. And then it's also the part of me that's saying, but the Steelers defense from time to time, they have these games where, Tomlin's in the hot seat, and here comes the defense with a heroic performance. I balance all of those things throughout the week. I'm just going to bite the bullet. Just take the Ravens, 27-16. I don't even want to. Mediocrity sucks, man. It really, really does. You don't know whether to go up or down. It's just you're in an endless maze trying to find your way out. Ravens over my Steelers 27-16. I don't even have the heart or stomach to say I hope that I'm wrong. Because do I really? Because for the long-term health of the organization, isn't it better if the Steelers like just lose out, go 6-11, Aaron Rodgers ends his career in embarrassing fashion, and Mike Tomlin's fired? Like, that's probably best for me and for my show, but I want to pull for my team. It's just a weird spot. All right, moving on to the next one. This game I do love. It is now time for my first game, for my favorite segment of all time. It is called
Bettin Man.
Fire at Bettin Man. Whew, we're going with the games that nobody's going to watch, but I'm loving it. AFC's matchup, Miami Dolphins, New York Football Jets from the Meadowlands. I'm loving the Jets plus 2.5. Here's why. First of all, over the last few weeks, and I don't know what Vegas has. I know the Jets aren't like contenders exactly, but I don't know what Vegas has against the New York Jets. But this season, folks, in the last month or so, they have been the cover darlings. All right? They were underdogs on the road against the Bengals. Won that game straight up in comeback fashion. They were underdogs at home against the Dylan Gabriel Browns, which made no sense to me. Won that game straight up. Dogs by 13.5 at New England, covered. Dogs by 13.5 against Baltimore, covered. Dogs at home against Atlanta, covered and won. They've been playing these guys again. There's a Brian Flores feel to Aaron Glenn right now. Remember Brian Flores took over the Dolphins? Dolphins were way worse to start 2019 than the Jets were this year, but it was just, they were getting blown out. They were bad. The quarterback play was terrible, and everything just wasn't working. And then by about Thanksgiving, going into December, okay, they're winning some games here or there. They're finding a little bit of a mojo, like something to feel good about themselves going into the offseason, especially with all the draft picks they have. That's how I feel about Aaron Glenn. And y'all know I'm a big Aaron Glenn fan. I'm a big fan of really the entire Lions 2024 staff. Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, and Ben Johnson. Love all of them. In this spot, they're dogs at home. What's the weather going to be in this game, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you did. The high is 42 degrees, which, it isn't bad for an early December game in the Meadowlands, early afternoon game. But what do we know about the Miami Dolphins quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa? He's bad in cold weather. Losing record, I think he's like 6-13 or something in sub 45 degree temperature, something along those lines. Like he's bad in those spots. It's a divisional matchup. Both teams are familiar with each other. Even though the Dolphins won last week against the Saints, it darn sure wasn't because of Tua, if you watched that game. So I get the Jets as underdogs again. Give me the Jets plus 2.5 and the outright W, 23-17. I love the Jets. Tyrod Taylor starting. He's been playing well. I think Tyrod Taylor is like the cover darling. He's like 7-0, I think, against the spread his last 7 games. The dog. Give me the New York Football Jets 23-17 over the Miami Dolphins. If I were a bet man, I love the Jets plus 2.5. So give me them in this spot. Up next, New Orleans Saints, Tampa Bay Buccaneers from Tampa. The Bucs are 8.5-point favorites. Todd Bowles announced today that Mike Evans is not going to play this game. Bucky Irving, who came back last week, obviously is, gave the offense a little bit of a boost. Listen, Tampa Bay knows Carolina's breathing down their necks. The way Bryce Young played last week, the way they're running the football, the way they've been doing that all season long, Bucs know, hey, listen, we've won the division the last 4 years. We can't lose it to the Carolina Panthers this year. Game at home against the Saints, who we've owned in the Baker Mayfield era. Tampa should win this game pretty easily, and I think they will. 27-14 over the Saints. Tyler Shuck had that one decent start against Carolina, and ever since then it's been terrible. Bucs 27, Saints 14. New Orleans fans are probably hoping to lose games at this point so they can get a high enough draft pick to take Fernando Mendoza. We're dubbing on the show, Fail for Fernando. Hopefully it catches on sooner rather than later. All right, it is now time for my second game of my favorite segment of all time. It is called
Bettin Man.
If I were a bet man, oh my gosh, again, Vegas, are you handing me money? Come on. The Indianapolis Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville is a 1.5-point dog at home. There are certain things in Vegas, and they don't always hit, but they generally tend to, that if you get the opportunity to take it, you take it. Again, I'm not a Mike Tomlin fan. But if Mike Tomlin's a home dog, you take Mike Tomlin, with the exception of last week, of course. If Andy Reid's coming off the bye, by and large, you take Andy Reid. And if the Jacksonville Jaguars are at home against the Indianapolis Colts, you take the Jacksonville Jaguars. Folks, the last time the Colts beat the Jags in Jacksonville, a lot of things were different about the world. But to use one in the NFL, Tom Brady had 3 rings. Think about that. Man has more championships than any franchise. He's got 7. He had 3. Now he ended up winning his 4th this season. 2014 was the last time the Colts went into Jacksonville and beat the Jags. They've lost to Jacksonville every single year since then. Every single year. Think about this. The fact that in 2020, the Jags won 1 football game. Who was it against? At home against the Colts. It got them Trevor Lawrence. In Trevor's rookie year with the awful Urban Meyer team, Colts were a win away from the playoffs. They go to Jacksonville against the 2-win Jags, and Trevor Lawrence beats them. So if I know anything, Daniel Jones, by the way, the man has a broken leg. He's not healthy. Against that Jags defense, against Josh Hines-Allen in that rush, against a Trevor Lawrence who's getting it going as of late. What do we talk about? Second half Trevor, saw it in 2022, saw it in parts in 2023 before he got hurt and the Jags couldn't get him a cart to bring him off the field. Love this. Give me the Jags, baby. Plus 1.5 and the outright W to take sole possession of first place in the AFC South. They were my preseason pick. They're going to get the job done. They're going to run the Colts down for the AFC South and do so in large part because of a win here. Again, if I were a bet man, I get the Jags as dogs at home against the Colts. Thank you very much, Vegas. Jacksonville 24, Indianapolis Jacksonville 24, Colts plus 20. If I were a bet man, give me the Jaguars plus 1.5. I freaking love it. Up next, Tennessee Titans on the road in Cleveland against the Browns. Cleveland is a 4.5-point favorite. So the big story in this one is Myles Garrett is 4 sacks away from breaking the all-time single-season sack record. Now, again, biggest knock on whatever for health. As long as he's healthy, we know he's going to do it. But there's 5 games left, he's going to do it. Question is he going to do the unthinkable and do it in this game, this Sunday? Well, the Titans and Cam Ward have been sacked on average 4 times a game. Do you want to take a wild guess to how many sacks Myles Garrett needs to break the all-time sack record? He needs 4. So it kind of, maybe it's working that way for Myles Garrett. The Titans have a terrible offensive line. I think Myles Garrett gets 2.5 sacks. I think he has a great game, but he doesn't quite break the sack record. Question then becomes, what does Shedeur Sanders do? His 3rd start was solid, pretty good against the Raiders. Not as good, although the play calling was very, very strangely conservative last week against the 49ers. Well, now in this spot, the Titans are terrible. Across the board, they're terrible. They have 1 win, and they shouldn't even have that win. The Cardinals handed it to them. I want to see Shedeur be accurate. I don't want to see any turnovers. I'd like to see Shedeur like 1 touchdown, no turnovers, about a 65% completion, just a good, solid, efficient start. I think that's what we're going to see. I think Quinton Judkins runs the football. Give me the Browns in the spot, 23-10 over the Titans. Tennessee's just awful. They're awful. And Cam Ward's going to have a long day against that defense. There's no question about it. Give me the Browns 23-10 over the Tennessee Titans. What do we have up next? We've got the Washington Commanders on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. Commanders are at least when I bet it, I say this in air quotes, bet it earlier, plus 1.5. They were 1.5 point dogs. Well, now the line has shifted to Washington is favored minus 1.5. Well, that's because Jaden Daniels is going to play in this game. Again, look, just go and put up the final score. These are 2 bad teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. I'm taking Washington to win outright. 27-17. Again, will J.J. McCarthy be better than Max Brosmer? Probably. It's hard. God bless the kid. It was his first start in Seattle. It was a tough spot to throw him into. I think he'll be better than that. So Jaden Daniels back. I'm not sure it's a good idea for him to come back, given that Washington is well out of the playoff picture. But I guess get some reps. End the season in a fashion in which you feel good about yourself going into next year. Try and bounce back after you made the NFC Championship game in 2024. But, I had a feeling Jaden Daniels was going to play all week. That's why I took Washington plus 1.5. And so, certainly, if you got them plus 1.5, good for you. You could still get them at minus 1.5 before that line continues to go up. Give me the Commanders in that spot. Up next, the one game that almost missed on if I were a bet man. And matter of fact, when I look back, I'll probably be like, I should have had that one in. Seattle Seahawks on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. Seattle is a 7-point road favorite. Again, Atlanta's just awful. They've won 1 game in their last 2 months, and that was against the terrible Saints. Kirk Cousins has been in there. He's been fine. Looks like a kind of traditional backup at this point in his career. Kirk's a good guy, but we know he's declining as a player at this particular stage of his career. And as for the Seattle Seahawks, again, they won 26-0 last week, albeit against Max Brosmer and the Vikings. with their offense doing literally nothing. Jackson Smith and Jigba had, I think, 2 catches for 26 yards. They didn't need him to be great. And so in this spot, against that bad Atlanta defense, this feels like the classic Sam Darnold, 3-4 touchdown performance type of a game. Seattle's defense and their speed are going to be all over the place. Bijan Robinson's going to have a long day at the office. He's got no one to back him up. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks comfortably, 30-16 over the Atlanta Falcons. They get to 10 wins to try and keep pace with the Los Angeles Rams in that very competitive NFC West. They play each other in a couple of weeks on Thursday Night Football, so that should be fun. Very well could decide the division. The Seattle wins this game over Atlanta, 30-16. Up next, this is not Bryson's Bleak bet, but this is I genuinely don't know where this game goes. Cincinnati Bengals, Buffalo Bills. The Bills are 5.5-point favorites. So I saw a stat today. Joe Burrow is 9-0 in his last 9 games. 9-0 against the spread, I should say, as an underdog. It's like, you do not cover if you're favored over Joe Burrow. And so when he's facing that Buffalo Bills defense that, as bad as it is, now doesn't have Joey Bosa. T. Higgins is back. That has an upset feel written all over. I almost went with it for upset of the week, but I actually have one that's higher than this. And if you are the Buffalo Bills, it's not like you're facing a bunch of world beaters in Cincinnati. You played well against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week, ran the football effectively, but this feels like a Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, just old school, great quarterback duel, mano-a-mano, back and forth type of a duel. If it were in Cincinnati, I'd probably take the Bengals. But at Orchard Park, the Bills know they need this game. So does Cincinnati, by the way. If the Bengals win this one, they're very much alive to win the AFC North, rather. I'm gonna take Cincinnati. That says Bills -5.5. Do we have the updated graphic potentially? I hope we have the updated graphic. Hang on. We should. Okay, I think we do. Here we go. The updated graphic. I'm gonna take Cincinnati +5.5, but the Bills to win outright. 30-27. Bills 30-27 over the Cincinnati Bengals. But I would not be shocked in the slightest if Cincinnati won this game. As bad as both defenses are and as explosive as both offenses are, this could go either direction. But I'm going to go with the Bills at home in that spot. Okay, I've teased it all show. My upset of the week. It's out there. Here we go. It is now time for my upset of the week. And it is a doozy, I must admit. Give me the Las Vegas Raiders over the Denver Broncos, 25-23. Vegas at home as a 7.5-point dog. They beat Denver straight up. Vegas 25, Denver 23, and here's why. So I know it's out there. And I know the Raiders have been awful, and Geno Smith's been awful. Nash and Genty's been a no-show, and Pete Carroll's probably going to get fired. I understand. With that being said, what do we know about the Denver Broncos, folks? They've been living dangerously. They've been living on the edge. 9 straight wins. They've trailed in all of them. In a divisional matchup, 2 teams that faced each other a few weeks ago, it was 10-7. It was the ugliest Thursday night game of the year. It was unwatchable. Vegas had their opportunities. They just couldn't cash in and take advantage in the Mile High. Well, now they're in the friendly confines, of Allegiant Stadium. Weather's not a factor. Denver is kind of riding high. Hey, we got a close win against Marcus Mariota and the Washington Commanders. Took a Nick Benito batted ball at the line of scrimmage to barely survive that game. Sean Payton, veteran coach, he knows, eventually we're due for a loss. I think this is it. And eventually bad teams, they'll get one occasionally. Raiders, baby. Vegas in an upset over the Denver Broncos, 25-23. I know my man Chris Mahi will be happy about this, although maybe he won't be because he probably wants the Raiders to just take their last 5 games so they can get Fernando Mendoza. Fail for Fernando. We're going to trademark it on this show. Fail for Fernando Mendoza, but I got the Raiders winning this game 25-23 over the Denver Broncos. Up next, it is my 3rd and final game for my favorite segment of all time. It is called
Bettin' Man.
If I Were a Bet Man. Whew. Isn't this what America's Game of the Week on Fox? Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers from Lambeau. The Packers are 6.5-point favorites at home. I will tell you right here and right now, if someone came in from a time machine from 48 hours from now, and they came here and they had just watched the Packers and Bears game, I could guess who the winner was just by asking them one question. Who won the battle between the Bears offensive line and the Packers defensive line? whoever, and this is like somebody from Pro Football Focus that went through a time machine, and they said, "Oh, the Packers won the line." Okay, then the Packers won the game. Or the Bills offensive line, or it's the Bills. The Bears offensive line won the battle at the line of scrimmage. Okay, then the Bears won the game. That will decide the outcome of this football game. A Bears offensive line that is dominating the run game, create huge holes for Kyle Monungai, for DeAndre Swift. Caleb Williams has done his thing as it relates to running the football. Green Bay Packers, Micah Parsons coming off a huge game. 2.5 sacks. I think it was like 3 tackles for loss against the Detroit Lions. He was great. But what do we know about this? Is that the greatest way to neutralize a great pass rush is with the running game. Chicago provides that. Also, and I don't know what it is, I have never seen a quarterback of Caleb Williams' size who's 6'1.5", 6'2" in cleats. I've never seen a guy so elusive, so incredibly difficult to sack. I'm not talking about he avoids the rush. I'm talking about guys have him in the grasp and he somehow gets out of it. Caleb, I guess, is stronger than we give him credit for. That's going to be a factor against Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, and those Packers pass rushers. 6.5 points, a team that did beat the Packers at Lambeau last year in Week 18. A team that, if not for a block kick, would have beaten the Packers in Soldier Field last year. They were awful last year. They had terrible coaching. Now Ben Johnson's there. Ben Johnson did a lot of trash talking at the podium, talking about, I can't wait to beat Matt LaFleur twice a year. Well, here's your opportunity. If I were a bet man, love the Bears plus 6.5, and I'm giving them the outright W on a walk-off field goal, 24-21 over the Green Bay Packers. The Bears plus 6.5. Have the bettors learned nothing? Has Vegas learned nothing? They were 7-point dogs to Philly and won outright. 6.5-point dogs to Green Bay, a team they're familiar with. Love them. Outright W, Bears 24, Packers 21. If I were a bet man, I love the Bears plus 6.5. Up next, Rams Cardinals. Kyler's been ruled out for the season. They already announced that today. Stafford and the Rams are due for a bounce back. Give me the Rams. There's no need to spend a lot of time in this game. Rams 34, Cardinals 20 to try and keep pace with the Bears for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Rams 34, Cardinals 20. And finally, I said last night was a playoff game between the Lions and the Cowboys where a loser of that game was done. And so I think Dallas is done. I don't think one of these teams will be done if they lose. The other, I will absolutely write them off for the rest of 2025. Sunday Night Football. The Houston Texans, the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City, a 3.5-point favorite at home. Houston's a terrible matchup for Kansas City. I mean, terrible. So you're talking about a team and a quarterback. Listen, I'm as pro Patrick Mahomes as anybody you'll find. Love Patrick. I thought he was great against Dallas last week. But what does Patrick Mahomes struggle against the most? Pressure, particularly when he's got offensive linemen out. Well, guess what? You got Jawan Taylor out. You got Trey Smith out. They are missing a lot of guys up front. Combine that with the fact that they're facing, forget how great the Houston Texans defense as a whole is. The Texans pass rush. The Texans are the only team in the league with 2 pass rushers with 10 or more sacks. Will Anderson, who's been awesome, and Danielle Hunter, who's been a great investment for this football team. That's a bad matchup for the Chiefs. How will they combat that? It will have to be get the ball to your hands quick. Mahomes to Kelsey, Mahomes to Rashee Rice, run after the catch. It'll have to be a ball control type of game, like using a screen game as the extension of the run game. That's what the Chiefs are going to have to do. The weather is on the Chiefs' side. It'll be like 20 degrees. Texans are a dome team. They're not used to that. I think Mahomes going to be running for his life a lot on Sunday night. I'm going to go Texans plus 3.5, but out of respect for the reigning dynasty and for the best quarterback on planet Earth, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs to save their season. Look, folks, they got to win out. It's that if the Chiefs win out, I think they're going to get in because I think the Chargers are going to fall. And the Chiefs play the Chargers in a couple of weeks. I've got Kansas City 23-20 over the Houston Texans. I think they do it on a Harrison Butker walk-off field goal. Chiefs 23, Texans 20, but I do like the Texans plus 3.5. Again, it's all of the matchups tell you, take the Texans. By the way, they won 4 straight. But if you're Kansas City, I mean, it's all on the line. By the way, we talk about Andy Reid off of a bye. Andy Reid's off of a mini bye. They haven't played since Thanksgiving Day. So they go from Thanksgiving Day all the way to 2 Sunday nights from then, and the weather's on their side. Again, the pass rush is going to be a problem. Mahomes might make a mistake in this game, but I'm going to go Kansas City to win straight up by a final score, 23-20 over the Houston Texans. And with that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and on X. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Tomorrow morning, check it out, live this Saturday morning tailgate, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network via YouTube and via X. Myself, Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst. It is going to be as lively, as energetic a show as we have had all season long. We got bets to pay. I don't have a bet to pay. I'm getting humiliated by Arthur and Tim for however long they choose to do so. And then Tim is going to pay a bet. He's going to sing Rocky. He's a Gators fan from Boston, by the way, who's going to sing Rocky Top. That's going to be fun. Also, conference championship predictions, our top 25s, reaction to Miami continually being below Notre Dame. Do we agree with that? Disagree with that? Talk about all of those things. But again, Saturday morning tailgate tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network via YouTube and on X. Have a great weekend, everybody. We're going to have a blast watching conference championship games. Week 14. We'll be back on Monday with a ton to talk about. So subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. And of course, subscribe to Carving It Up with Bryson Carver. That is, I guess I'm not going to CarvingItUpWITHBRYSON Carving It Up with Bryson Carver. Check it out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that big red subscribe button down there because it helps the channel grow exponentially. Please do the same for the Grid, and please follow me on my social media platforms. You got IG, you got TikTok, you got X, all the platforms. We appreciate it if you subscribe and follow to all of them. We will see you guys next Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. See y'all on Saturday morning tailgate tomorrow. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Can the Steelers season just end already? I mean, come on. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.